In this video, I'm going to show you how we can understand the process of multiplying by 10. All you're going to need is some place value equipment, so hundreds, tens, and ones. If you don't have equipment like that, you can easily make some using matchsticks, cocktail sticks, something small, quite cheap. Also going to need some paper strips and place value grid. And you can easily download place value grids online or just draw them out on paper. We're going to use our place value equipment to understand what's happening when we multiply or divide by 10. So I've got my ones, my tens, and my hundreds. If you don't have this sort of place value equipment, you can easily make some from matchsticks. So here's a 1. And then we can put 10 of those together in a bundle to make a 10. And then to make 100, we would need 10 of these bundles together. And the process of making this equipment can really help a child to understand what our place value system is, which links directly into multiplying by 10, as we're going to see. So I'm going to start with 1. And if I have 1 and I multiply it by 10, that means I make it 10 times larger. So instead of 1 cube, I'm going to have 10 cubes altogether. And we can see that those 10 cubes are exactly the same as one of our tens. Why it's called a 10, same as 10 ones. So 1 times 10 is 10. The 1 has moved from being one cube to being 1 10 stick. So I can show that here. When we've multiplied by 10, we've moved from the ones column to the tens column. So now we're going to look at our tens column. And we've got 1 10 stick. If we multiply that by 10, means instead of 1 10 stick, we are going to have 10. So 10 10 sticks is exactly the same as for 100. We normally call these 100 flats. So my 100 flat is going to go in the hundreds column, my next column. So 10, if we multiplied it by 10, became 100. So we're thinking about moving one place along every time we multiply by 10. If we kept going and multiplied 100 by 10, so 100 multiplied by 10 would become 1000, and we would have our thousands column. But we're going to stick just for now with our ones, tens, and hundreds. So I've got my 100. What happens if I divide by 10? Well, that means I'm splitting my 100 up into 10 equal pieces, and we can actually see those 10 columns all the way along our 100 flat, 10 of them. So if we divide 100 by 10, we would end up with 10 stick. So this time we're moving backwards along our place value grid. So I'm going to show that here. If we divide by 10, our 100 becomes a 10. And now we can see I've got a 10 stick. And if I divide that 10 stick up into 10 pieces, I just have a 1. So my 10 stick divided by 10 would equal 1. So we can see multiplication means moving to the left, getting larger. 10 times larger each time, from the ones to the tens, and then to the hundreds, and if we carried on to the thousands. And when we're dividing, we're reversing that process. So our hundreds become tens, and our tens become ones. So let's look at what happens when we multiply 3 by 10. So I've got my number 3 in the ones column, and I've got 3 ones. And we know if we make our ones 10 times larger, each one is going to become a 10. So we're going to have 3 tens. So I'm moving the 3 along. And we've got no ones. So it's important we use that 0 as a placeholder to show that we've got no ones. 3 tens and 0 ones is 30. So if I take my 30 and multiply it by 10, again, I'm going to move my tens along, make them 10 times bigger. So they're going to become hundreds. I've got 3 hundreds. And I can move my 3 along into my hundreds column. And I can see I need an extra placeholder. So now I've got 2 zeros showing that my ones have actually moved from my tens to my hundreds and become 300. I can reverse that process. So if I take my 300 and divide it by 10, my hundreds are going to become 10 times smaller, and they will be tens. So now I've got 3 tens. So my digits are all moving back a space. So my 3 now is in my tens column. So 300 divided by 10 equals 30. And if I divide 30 by 10, then I'm going to turn my tens into ones. They're going to become 10 times smaller. So I'm just going to get back to 3 ones, which is where I started. So my digit now, my 3, has moved back to my ones column. Let's look at a 2-digit number this time. So I have got 24, 2 tens and 4 ones. And if I want to multiply it by 10, again, my tens are going to become hundreds. So I have 2 hundreds, and my ones are going to become tens. So I have 4 tens. And again, as my digits move across, I need to use a placeholder to show I have no ones. So 24 multiplied by 10 is 240. So if we divide 240 by 10, we're going to move everything one space to the right. So our tens are going to become ones. They get 10 times smaller and become ones. And our hundreds, or 200s, become 10 times smaller. So now that they are tens. And we can see we've had to remove the placeholder. It's no longer needed because we have got 4 in our ones column. Once we know what's happening when we multiply by 10, we can multiply any number by 10. And a really useful way of doing this is to write the number that you want to multiply on a long strip of paper. So I have 274 with each digit in the correct column. And if I want to multiply that by 10, I know my digits are all going to slide along one column, and I can see I've got nothing in my ones, so I need to write that 0 1. So my answer would be 2,740. I'm going to flip this over, and let's pick 4,200. and we're going to divide that by 10. So I'm going to write my 4,200. And I can just move my strip, my digits, one place to the right. So I can see before, and it's now in the hundreds, 2 is in the tens, and there's a 0 in the ones, which I need to keep. But this extra 0, this extra placeholder, is no longer needed. So my answer is 420. I hope that's helped you to see what happens when we multiply by 10 or divide by 10, and why it's more than just adding on a 0 or taking a 0 off.